right, Matt. What's up? How you
What's
doing?
up, Artie? How are you?
Good, man. Good talking to you.
You
I'm
well?
pumped to speak to you today because there's just so much in your background that I want to get into, from your time at Embarcadero selling to IT, success
Yeah,
factors, scaling the team there, and then obviously your time at Iterable, where I know it's still a private company, so we can't talk about the numbers, but I looked at the Spiff blog and it said 30x revenue there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I kind of want to dig into that. Um, and now Spiff, which is an exciting company as well. One of the things
yeah,
my reps always give me shit about is, how much commission am I getting? What day am I getting it? Has it hit our books yet? So I'm assuming
yes.
Spiff helps with that a little bit. Um, but before we get into Spiff and all that stuff,
Yeah,
when I look at your background, you've led sales at large public companies, but your last couple roles have really centered around early stage startups,
yeah,
grinding it out at that early stage. It's not something that a lot of people want to do over and over again. So tell me
yeah.
about, what is it about this stage of company that keeps pulling you in?
So the interesting thing is most of the companies that you mentioned that were big, other than Citrix, most of them were small when I started, right? So Embarcadero was small. Success Factors was really just starting. Citrix was pretty established by the time I got there. Moment Feed was small. Iterable was small, and now Spiff is small. I mean, to me, the thing that I love about going into small companies is you still have that family atmosphere. You still have just the opportunity to learn new things and try different things to drive success. And you really start to understand not just what is the customer profile, but what is the hiring profile that we need to build company A to become, a larger company. And to me, like that's where I get the most excited is hiring great people. And I've kind of, really held that bar as high as I can throughout my career. So I think, it takes a special breed to go to a smaller company because they're very different than, working at a large company where you have all the resources, you have all those things. So there are certain characteristics of people that, I kind of look for at each kind of stage of a company. But when I hire, I kind of have very, especially salespeople, I have three very basic things that I look for with people.
Well, let's dig into that. You said three basic things
Yeah.
that you look for when you're hiring salespeople. What are those things?
So the first one's a gimme, right? You got to have some record of success at something, right? Not necessarily sales, but you have to prove to be successful because it takes effort, it takes knowledge, it takes many things to be successful. But from a sales perspective, I really look for two things. I look for people that are naturally curious, and I look for people that have courage. Because being in sales, right? Yeah, we're all charged with asking questions, doing those things, but it actually takes courage to ask questions of people that you don't know during a discovery call. And it really takes courage to ask questions that you might not want the answer to. But if you're doing your, in sales process, sometimes a no is the best answer you can get. But it takes courage to ask questions that you might be a little afraid to know the answer. So those are the two things. I look for people that are naturally curious, and I look for people that have courage.
Just to play devil's advocate here. So when you're
Sure.
starting at one of these companies, right? There's a lot of pressure on you to hit numbers early on as a sales
Yeah.
leader. So courage and curiosity,
Yep.
obviously important. But let's say
Mhm.
you jump into a company like Spiff. The first couple of hires are you making, are you also going to prioritize someone who has experience selling that exact solution, or is that not as important to you early on?
Not as important early on, because at a startup, right? In most cases, those first few hires, those first few months, you're learning how to sell your product and your solution, right? So I like people that have experience in selling because my leadership style is I'm pretty collaborative. So I want them to get into deals, and as a team, we can start figuring out what is the best way to sell and position Spiff or Iterable or Success Factors and these other, where I've been. But to me, like the best way to do that is to get a collaborative environment where people are not just interested in their own success, they're interested in the company's success.
Well, since we're talking about reps and some of the traits that you look for,
Yeah.
I also want to dig into the importance of first impressions, right? Because, we talked
You
before
want to talk
this.
about the one that you made?
Well, I'm no Charles. I'm not very good at making first impressions. But this is about you, not me. So let's talk about how important are first impressions to you? And can you think of a story where maybe a rep came in, didn't leave the best first impression, but you felt
Yeah.
there was something there and you fought for them? Because, it's also decision by committee a lot of times, right? Like when I'm hiring people at Gravitational, everyone scores them and anyone has veto power. So has there been a case where someone comes in, you're pumped about them, but maybe they rub people the wrong way and people are like, Matt, this guy's kind of an asshole. But I don't know, maybe there's something there where you're like, okay, maybe he was just having a bad day and you fight for him and then he ends up being a star.
So there's a couple. So if this person watches this interview, that person is going to know this is about that person. So in this case, it was actually the reverse. Everybody really liked this person. And to me, like, this person just came in super aggressive and super hot and like kind of came off as arrogant. And it just rubbed me wrong. And I was a no. And this person kept coming. And we ended up hiring this person, and they turned into like the number one, number two rep. This person's a really good friend of mine to this day. And I've told him, self-admittedly, that not hiring that person would have been a major mistake in my career, because that person was he's an amazing salesperson. And he's turned into just a really good friend. So yeah, I mean, first impressions are tough, but they can be overcome if you do it right. And, there was another one where this person came in right out of school, super junior. I was hesitant. I was for an SDR role. That person, I took that person on, and, she's gone on to be just a powerhouse. She's a super force. And, again, if I didn't hire her, that would have been a major loss for me. And she's turned into a really great friend as well. So, they definitely happen, but I think it's up to the interviewer and the interviewee to kind of work through those dynamics, because it is, the first time you're talking to someone, and some people have a view of how they should interview for a sales role, but it really comes down to who are you as a person, in my opinion, because, who you are as a person will come through to customers and prospects, and how you bond with people, I think, makes all the difference.
Okay, since we're on the topic of hiring and going through the recruiting process, another thing that I wanted to dig into with you is just the current process that you have in place and that you've used in multiple companies. So for example, when I started hiring people at Gravitational, one of the things that I had enterprise reps do was the typical 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? And as time went on, I noticed that all the 30, 60, 90-day plans were exactly the same. It was like, oh, the first 30 days, I'm going to learn the product. In 60 days, I'm going to prospect. 90 days, I'm going to close my first deal. So I started changing that because I wasn't getting a ton out of it. What are you doing in your interview process? And maybe don't give too much away if you want people to be surprised by when they apply to Spiff. But I just want to get a sense of like, what's your philosophy around the process, and what kind of skills are you looking to gauge for throughout that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for the 90-day thing, I generally have manager potentials or leader candidates do that, because for me, it's important. I've seen and I've done 90-day plans in my life, and do you stick to them if you get hired? It's debatable. Usually that you don't. But for me, it's a way to see how someone's mind works. And then more importantly, that person's presenting that 90-day plan with my leadership team. And, it's important for me to kind of see how people are interacting with each other during that process. Because again, I think that the way that I operate is I can have the best sales candidate or the best sales leader on the planet sitting in front of me, but if they can't fit in with the culture, I won't. I'll usually walk away, because I think like it can cause a lot of disruption, especially in a small company. So from a rep's perspective, my process is, in the early days, I will do the initial kind of phone screen in most cases. And then from there, I'll have that person talk to a couple of reps, one of the leaders, and in a small company, I think it's important to get the CEO experience as well. And then I do that for a couple of reasons. One, I want us to get to know that person more, but I also want that person to get to know us more, right? And kind of get all the answers and understand, where, if I lift this rock up, what's under there? If I go over here, what's over here? Because in a startup, you've got to be in, right? Because it's even the greatest companies on the earth, some of it can get a little bumpy. So like that, I go through kind of like an interview by committee, but I think it's important that the candidate is able to see different perspectives before they say yes or no.
I wanted to keep asking you about reps, but you mentioned the bumpy thing there, and that's a juicy topic right there, right? Because I think when you look at interviews online, you always see the highlight reel. Everything's always smooth, from 1 to 50 million ARR in 24 months, scaled the team to 200 in a year. Just these ridiculous stats, right? But it does tend to be pretty bumpy. So one of the things I wanted to dig into with you is, and you don't have to give the specific example, but you've obviously had a long career in Silicon Valley. Tell me about a time where you had a bumpy ride and how you bounced back. Because I know you've done that, and I know that's hard for people to do. So how do you, what was the mindset there? Because it's hard, right? I mean, I don't know. For me, even when I have a bad quarter, sometimes I'm like starting to doubt myself. I'm like, shit, is there something wrong with me? Have I lost it? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I'll answer that with like the quarterly thing and then more of like an overall experience. So the quarterly thing, I really try to, be as calm as possible. A buddy of mine did a reference call for me years ago, and he was asked, hey, Matt's not the prototypical sales leader, how should I think about that? And like he just said, like Matt's like a duck on the pond, right? Like on the pond, he's super calm, looking around, checking out the range, checking out that. But under the water, those legs are moving. So I try to remain calm, because I've just seen where, if I'm projecting stress and if I'm projecting whatever, panic, anything negative, that's going to reverberate across not just the sales team, but the company. So I try to really remain calm, and be the light that people look to. Now, on the overall experience perspective, I definitely had a bump, and the way that I kind of came out of that is during the time it just wasn't fun. But what I told myself and what I realized was it got me ready for the next one, and like I was really ready to take that on and build it out. And so, while it wasn't a great experience, I was able to take away what I learned from it and what I took away from it, the things that I would do and things that I wouldn't do or necessarily repeat. But it also helped me really identify what was I looking for in the next kind of leader that I was going to work with, and the next kind of company, and all those sorts of things.
That gets me fired up. All right. So speaking of things that you look for in leaders, early stage sales most of it is, are you going to get along with the founder? Is this person going to be a pleasure to work with? But what are the types of things you're looking for when you're thinking of investing the next, 4 to 6 years of your life working with a person?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I look for a few things. One, I look for someone that, I'd want to hang out with. Depending on how you look at it, right? We all spend the majority of our life working. And my philosophy on that is, why would I want to do it with people I don't want to hang out with? Because it's hard enough. Why make it harder? And I also look for someone that I can partner with to really kind of build a company, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to think the same or anything like that, but just like we're after the same goals. And if we have disagreements of opinion or whatever, we can talk about them, right? It's not about ego. It's about what what is the company we want to build in the end, right? It shouldn't matter who's right or wrong. It just matters that you get to the right decision to get you to the next kind of step of where you're going. So yeah, and then I look for people that have a vision. Like, I'm not really interested. I mean, I'm interested in today, but I'm more interested in where do you want to take the company and what can I do to help get the company to go there with you. So, and like when I interviewed with Jaron, our CEO at Spiff, those were some of the conversations that we had. And just like, I really wanted to know kind of who he was as a person, what kind of leader was he, and could him and I like really form a brotherhood and a partnership to kind of build the company to where it wants to go.
Now you've picked a founder you want to work with,
Yep.
and you're starting to plan 12 months in advance. You're looking at next year. You're looking at your hiring plan. You're starting to set expectations
Yeah.
with the board. How are you managing those expectations across the board, right? Because that's one of the things that I found challenging at times, where you have like a lot of people that are heavily invested in the company doing well and
Yep.
hitting specific metrics within a specific period of time.
Yeah.
And you obviously don't want to lowball the forecast, but how are you going about setting realistic expectations that you think you can hit? And then getting everyone from the founder to the board to buy into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. One of the conversations that I've had with the previous board is, when it comes to numbers, and this is when I first started, I told them like, look, I whatever the plan is, I just need to be able to see a path to the number. And it's going to be hard. And throughout the year, there's going to be trees that fall down the road. There's going to be sinkholes that open up. But I just need to see a path to the number. If I can do that, then I can structure a plan with it. But if I can't see, if we want to like quadruple, or go, crazy next year, I can't see it based on certain factors of pipeline and trends and those sorts of things. I'm just honest with people, right? Like, or during a quarter, if I know the number is going to be low, I'm going to tell them that, right? Especially in a growing company, like there should be no surprises because like there's so many different things at stake. There's hiring plans, there's all sorts of things. So it helps the leadership team kind of band together and figure out how to like either bridge the gap to the number or get closer. But I just, I try to be as honest as I can, as much as I can. And, is it difficult at times? Of course. But I think as a leader, it's your responsibility to be open and honest with a forecast above the number or a forecast below the number. Because you want to make sure that everybody's living in reality, because a startup is, a growing company. There's so many different dynamics that go into that. Or if you miss, some things might have to change in regards to the plan. So, it's not easy to be honest when you're forecasting low, but I think you have to. It's your responsibility as a leader.
Yeah, it's better to be upfront about it
100%.
than to come with bad news like
by the
5
way.
days before. Yeah. Okay, speaking of just leading teams, I guess one of the things that I've struggled with as a newer manager is how do you strike the right balance between empathy and assertiveness when you're leading your team, right? Because sales is one of those roles where you kind of you have to hit the number at the end of the day, right? And
Yeah.
sure, you're going to miss from time to time, but how do you make sure you're there to support your reps, but also driving them towards very aggressive goals?
Yeah. So, I think like for me personally, I have a ton of empathy, and sometimes, I will probably delay a decision in certain cases instead of just like making the decision, because my heart sometimes does get in the way. Absolutely. But as I've kind of grown and all these things, it's in the end, it's better for the person, it's better for the business. But at the end of the day, whether it's right for everyone, it's still a change, right? And change is hard for people. But I've been taught all of my years of doing this that no one should ever be surprised, right? They should know kind of where they stand what they need to work on, what do they need to do. And I've tried to do that pretty well. I've definitely slipped up over the years, as I'm sure everybody has, but that's the hardest part of, in my opinion, of being a leader, because you have to make those hard decisions. And even when you're affecting, the business, someone's life, but you still have to make the decision, right? But it's, I got taught, like I said, I got taught long ago, no one should ever be surprised, right? If that day comes, they should know that day is there. So it's all about communication. It's all about, kind of giving people the opportunity to be successful, and coaching them along the way, good and bad.
To piggyback off that, one of the challenging things about hiring enterprise reps, right, is the ramp time. It takes a long time to actually see results. What are some of the things you're looking for when you have an enterprise rep that may have, let's say, I don't know, a 9-month ramp or whatever it is at Spiff now? What are you looking for in those first 3 to 6 months as they're ramping up to 100% to know that this is the right person? Because one of the challenging thing is people outside of sales, they might look and be like, "Oh, when is this person going to close a deal? Like, when is this coming in?" Right? So how are you
never
setting?
Had that conversation, buddy. Never. I especially on the enterprise side, I look at a couple of things. One, I look at like how much effort are they putting in, right? What are they doing to kind of build their pipe? Is it partnering with their SDR? Is it taking their responsibility on themselves? But the other part is like, how deep are you digging into the product to really understand, A, how do you sell it? But B, like how well do you understand the product and how well do you understand the market and the problems that we're trying to solve, so you can talk with confidence when you get inside these conversations. But to me, it's about, effort, about like trying to build pipe, trying to partner with the SDR or whatever. But it's really about like, what are you doing to try to learn as much as you can about the product that we sell and the market that we're in, so you can talk confidently about solving problems that prospects are trying to solve. Right. And in a past life, the product was super technical, and the reps they had to dig in and understand the depth of kind of what that product did, and if they didn't, they would struggle. So that was something we paid attention to very, very deeply in the beginning of a rep getting hired, is how much time are you taking to really learn the stuff that is going to matter when you get into conversations. And if someone was slow on learning, it was pretty predictable that they were going to run into some challenges as they kind of got inside of deals.
One of the challenging things that I'm sure you've dealt with multiple times is you hire a core team. Some of the early stage reps come in, they get like a really good territory, right? And they start killing it. And I'm not trying to take anything away from reps for killing it because of the territory, but eventually those territories have to get diced up. And those conversations can be kind of tough with the rep, especially if they already have a lot of momentum, because on one hand, they're kind of your superstar rep. On the other hand, you want to make sure that the new reps coming in have a fair shot of hitting their number as well. So walk me through how you would have a discussion like that, or how you would frame that with a rep when you're about to essentially slice up their territory that they've just been killing it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, especially, at a small company, let's say you have a few reps and now you want to grow to whatever, 8 or 10. The conversation goes, listen, like, you've done an amazing job. We have to, we're scaling, so, things are going to change a little bit. But here's the thing, like, I've never known a salesperson to make less money with more focus, right? And the reason is that you can really drill in on your customers, you can know more about them versus like just getting everything and not knowing a lot. If you do it right and the theories are correct, your deals will close faster. They'll become bigger because you'll know more about the customer and what you're trying to solve. And it just allows you to be more focused. I think from a sales perspective, the more focused an AE is, the more successful they become. Whether it's focused on learning in the beginning, like I said, or is it focused on building pipeline? There takes a certain element of focus where you can take the time to do whatever task needs to be done. So you're a better understanding of customer problems to have these conversations because you know the customers more intimately versus I've got the entire US and it's just coming, right? And like, and the other part is, the positive thing is as a company, we're growing. If it went the other way, that wouldn't be so positive, right? Like, and so I think I've never experienced reps that don't understand that. Do they like it? No, but they understand, right? They understand that the company's growing and these things come, and so, when I started at Spiff, I was saying things early on, like, hey, like, we're going to have to get some structure in place, get some territories, and it's all about focus, right? We got to get some focus going. So we start to learn and understand these companies we're trying to get into more intimately than we do right now.
All right. One final question before we get into Spiff.
All right.
And speaking of superstar reps, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of a difficult question for me to pose, but do you like most reps that I talk to? There's a lot of ambition in Silicon Valley, right? Everyone wants to
Yep.
go to the next stage. SDRs want to be AEs, AEs want to be managers, managers want to be directors, and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've had this before where you have this superstar rep who's just absolutely killing it. It's like, Matt, I'm ready for the next step. I need to lead a team. And deep down inside, you just know that they're not going to be as successful leading as they are
Yeah.
closing business. How do
Yeah.
you have that conversation? Because that's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I mean, so for me, like anybody that wants to go in management, my first question is why? Like, why would you want to do this, right? And I think like when you ask that question of why, then you can start hearing the motivations and why they think. A lot of people just think it's the next step and it's naturally what I want to do. It's funny because one of the things that if like, let's say a rep, like, let's say that I promoted you into management, right? And you've been a great AE, blah, blah, blah. One of the things I will say to people is like, look, I guarantee you within 90 days, I'm going to have to say this to you at some point. Remember, you wanted this, right? Because you're going to start dealing with a different set of complexities and different sets of issues when multiple people are your responsibility versus just yourself, right? It's not harder, it's just different. And so, I will try to talk to them about their motivations. Why do you think that you would be good at this? Like, what is the real reason you want to do this? Do you feel like it's just the next step? Do you not want to have the grind anymore? And try to just get to the bottom of kind of why their mind is taking them there. And a lot of times,
what's a good motivation for that?
That you want to help people be successful, right? Because that's ultimately what our jobs are as leaders. You're a leader now, like, so our job is to ensure that the company is successful and to ensure that the people that we lead are successful. Do we get it right every single time? No, but we learn as much as we can. We try to improve. But I think that you have to understand like what comes with the responsibility of being a leader, and does that motivate you, right? And the one conversation that I think I have the most with this conversation with reps is there is a loss of control, right? Like most of the successful AEs are successful because they're controlling their process, they're controlling their conversations. And when you get out of that and you start leading people, like the control, you're not able to control every single thing. And like, to me, like when I've promoted some really great reps, that's where a few of them have struggled. And my counsel to them is always, look, you can't expect people to be like you because they're not you, right? So it's not fair to them, and it's really not fair to you, right? You can't expect people to do exactly what you would do because it might work for you, but it might not work for them, right? So you have to understand like where are their strengths and how do you drive those strengths of theirs, but also improve where they have some opportunities to learn and improve from. And that's a hard transition. It's really hard. Like when I was first approached about management a long time ago, I didn't want to do it. I said no, because at the time, I was 30. And at that point in my life, I just wanted to make a bunch of money and go have fun, and didn't want to worry about anybody else. But my VP at the time can be very persuasive, and so we agreed that I would do it for a year, and if I didn't like it, I could kind of get out. And consequently, I've sort of been doing it ever since. So yeah, but my first initial reaction to management was no. I said no like 3 times. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that. So, and yet here I am 20 years later.
All right. So you joined Spiff how long ago?
3 months.
Okay. And you guys have
Yeah.
raised how much? Around like 25, 30 mil?
Right around 12 to 15.
15? Okay, cool. What drove you to Spiff? Why are you excited about the opportunity? And
Yeah.
why should the best reps in Silicon Valley be running towards this opportunity?
So, I actually was not looking when I was approached about Spiff. I got an email from someone I know, and the email was intriguing. So I said, sure, I'll talk to him. Why not? And so I had an initial conversation with our CEO, Jaron. I was super intrigued by him as a person. And that intrigue has turned out to be true. He is genuinely a phenomenal leader, and one of the best human beings I've known. He's truly a great person. And I knew that I could be a true partner with him in building this company. A few things were super intriguing. Spiff is at the exact same inflection point of when I joined another company. Same deal size, same trajectory, everything aligned with that. And I remember when I was talking to Jaron throughout the interview process, at one point I was just like, man, the similarities are uncanny. This is kind of weird. And then, the more conversations I had with the board and Jaron, I just, in the way the numbers internally were building, pipeline and so forth, my sniff test of opportunities is I need to be able to walk away and say in my heart, these guys are onto something. And I think we're onto something. And I think, this market has been around for a while. No one's really solved it well. And I think we do. And, our results are proving that. And, if why you should be running to Spiff. I believe we have an opportunity to build an amazing company. I believe that we have an amazing solution that is solving, you're a sales leader, right? How difficult are building comp plans? How difficult is it to distribute this stuff? It's not easy. So we're solving problems, but also we're doing it a little differently, where the visibility that we give the sales reps themselves and in their view into their own comp is just super motivating, right? We have customers that their reps are in our solution 3 or 4 times a day. And I remember when I was interviewing with Jaron, he was doing a demo, and he kind of mentioned, this is why our customers, their reps are in our solution all the time. And he kind of went on something else. I was like, whoa, can you go back to that for a second? I'm like, did you just say the reps are engaged with this thing? He goes, yeah. I'm like, I need to know more about that. I'd like to understand more about that, because in my life, people just go in there once a month or once a quarter and go, yeah, this is wrong or this is right, and that's it. So we're encapsulating everything from finance and ops, building of the comp plans, formulating comp plans, distributing them out, being able to track and trace all kinds of deals and data, but also visibly putting it in front of the sales reps themselves so they can see how far away they are from the accelerators. Managers can coach to that, right? So we're really encapsulating a lot of things that others are not, because we're involving the sales folks themselves.
It makes a ton of sense, because just think about, and I don't know if you're this type of person, but for me, I'm constantly checking on my stocks, looking at my bank account. It's just a natural instinct, right? So it would make sense for me to want to do the same thing with my commissions, right?
Yeah, and think about it, right? You've been doing this, I've been doing this a long time. In most cases, if I'm a salesperson, I need a slide rule and an abacus just to figure out what I'm supposed to make this quarter, right? But that's the beauty of Spiff, right? We're making finance and ops people's lives much easier by being able to automate a lot of things, but we're making the reps themselves more productive and happier because they can see right in front of them what they're making, where they are versus quota, and what do they have to do to get into accelerator land, spiff land, and that just drives productivity. It drives motivation because it's right in front of their faces versus, hey, Bardia, do you have the email that Marshall sent out to be in the quarter with our accelerators, or somewhere? Can someone show it to me in Slack? And like, it's just that game where it's like you send an email out and then it just gets sucked into an inbox. Like with Spiff, it's just right in front of your face. You know where you are. You know how you stand against them. You can even figure out from a discounting, like what if scenarios of like, all right, if I discount this deal, how far does it get me to my accelerators?
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's really cool.
I'm thinking of, I don't know if you guys already do this, but one of the ideas that just went off in my head is, so in Salesforce, you essentially have like the expected value of deals based on the stage that they're at. I'm thinking if there's a way to link that with Spiff. So like based on your current pipeline, it projects like how much money you can earn by the end of the quarter. That would be kind of cool. I don't know.
We don't do that, but I'm talking to product when we get up this one.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, to want to know how much money you're going to make, right?
Totally. Yeah. Like you can do that in different ways, but not, I don't believe we do it right out of like the percentages basis of how everybody puts their stages together.
And
3 months, man. Only been 3 months.
So can people just go on your website and test the product, or is this something where you have to kind of go through a sales cycle, talk to a rep, and then get access to a trial? Just walk me through that real quick.
So we don't really have like active trials where you just like click a button and off you go, because we are solving complex problems. And so, there is some API connections and those sorts of things that you just can't do it out of the box. So how we approach it is, we'll go through a normal discovery call and have some conversations and do a basic demo. And then, we'll ask customer A to give us some of like their information, comp plans, those sorts of things. Obviously they generalize them, so it's not company specific, but then we'll build out a really personalized demo with everything that they've given us and show them their world inside of Spiff. And we show them how it flows, how we build comp plans for them, how we like once you get all of your APIs connected, right? And this is kind of the beauty of what we do. Once you get that initial setup, right, everything in Salesforce is going to get pulled into Spiff. So if I hire you as a rep, Bardia, and you join our company and you get input into Salesforce, you automatically will get pulled into Spiff. Your hierarchies of where you are in the org will automatically flow and automatically get set up. Your quotas and everything will automatically get injected into there. So like once you get the initial setup, a lot of it is automated on the admin side, right? You're still making comp changes and those sorts of things manually, but we automate a ton. And that's really kind of where our power and strength come from on the admin and kind of ops and finance side.
I'm definitely going to check it out. The reps on my team would love to dive into that because I'm getting pinged all the time, and they're asking me for access to Stripe, and they want to go and Stripe and look at if the bills are hitting. So that's probably not the best strategy. All right, so I figured we'd just kind of wrap it up with something light.
Yeah.
And we can dig into these depending on how interested you are, but what are some like books you're reading right now, or books that have had like a big influence on you? And then I want to get into a couple other categories too, but maybe let's start with books.
So the book that's had the biggest effect on me on my life, and this is, it was The Fountainhead. Like, I just think that book is phenomenal about paving your own way and being determined. I on the lighter side of things, I definitely love like the detective novels and all those sorts of things. I have become more of a podcast listener as of late. I was a late adopter to the whole podcast thing. So that's where I'll get a lot of learnings from that. And
what's your go-to podcast?
Bill Simmons podcast.
He's great. Well,
he's amazing. He's amazing. Yeah. So because, for what you and I do for a living, right? It's stressful and it's a lot of time. I'll go for walks at night and listen to podcasts or listen to music and just kind of let my brain turn down. And as you know, like I smoke a cigar every night on a walk. And it helps me relax. So yeah.
Yeah, I also think in our industry or in sales, there's this emphasis on like only reading nonfiction sales
Right.
leadership books. It's
Right.
like, okay, I've read Extreme Ownership, I've read Radical Candor. They're great books, but you can learn from other things too. You don't only have to
Totally.
read this. Like you kind of turn into a square after a while if that's all you're reading. Um,
Totally.
anyways, what about, okay, I know you're a gamer back in Moment Feed. Are you still playing games?
A little bit. Yeah. I've been known to get on there from time to time.
MLB The Show. I remember that was your thing.
Yeah. So the MLB The Show, after all these years, for those of you that know me, I still can't hit, right? My average is like, I played the career mode. My batting average is like sub 200 and terrible. I get so frustrated. There's been times where I've almost cried. I get so irritated and frustrated where I've wanted to like throw my controller out the window. But lately I've been playing this game on PS4 called Last of Us 2. It's like a zombie apocalypse kind of thing. Definitely wait for
It's in the queue for me. Yeah, that looks amazing. I have the first
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Um,
But again, it's an escape, right? It's an escape from the daily grind.
well, Matt, it's been awesome talking to you.
You as well, man. Known each other for a
Um,
while now.
I know. I'm glad that you accepted this invitation. I wasn't sure what you were going to say when I reached out. But it looks like Spiff is on a good trajectory, and
Yeah,
I
man.
definitely want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
And best of luck, and hopefully we get
Thanks.
to do this again soon.
I love that. I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
See
Take
ya.
care.